Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special Pride Edition Career Huddle, designed to support job seekers in the LGBTQ+ community. Delighted to have you join us. Thank you very much. I'm John Jacobs. I go by he, him, and I'm one of the co-founders of CandidateX, based here in the UK, originally from London, now based in the Southwest. And I'm thrilled to be moderating this session for you guys today. Before we dive into the event, just a really quick intro on us. I imagine for many of you, this is the first time you'd have heard of us. CandidateX was created to reduce bias in the hiring process and provide equal access to opportunities for underestimated talent. We do this in a couple of ways, through our AI-enabled anonymization technology, which redacts candidates on point of job application on our job board platform, which goes live, really exciting, in a couple of weeks. And also through our inclusion-focused e-learning program, where we train recruiters to be aware of their unconscious bias in their day-to-day interactions with job seekers and hiring managers. Let me also introduce our partners, TalentNet. TalentNet are the leading direct sourcing platform. For those unfamiliar with direct sourcing as a concept, it's a talent acquisition strategy which uses a brand's name to better attract and engage with talent pools in a walled community setting. And they've got an incredible range of clients, including Meta and Boeing. So amazing business. So today's event, we've had a really great response, and I'm pleased to say we've got people from all corners of North America, a few of us also here in the UK as well. But we know it's a difficult time to be a job seeker, and many of you will have been impacted directly or indirectly by recent layoffs. This is our second career huddle we've done back by popular demand, following a really well-attended and successful first event a few months back. And the idea of the career huddle is really simple. We wanted to create something, sessions where we could, proactively support you all in what is a challenging job market, and especially challenging for those of you in the LGBTQ+ community. You don't have to dig too far on Google to find statistics and data points that really validate the purpose of why this session is so important and the very challenges that face this community in the job market. So, we believe with the right guidance and support and mindset, we can really help overcome these challenges and help you find your next role. So we've assembled a really fantastic panel of expert career coaches, all of whom have given up their time today, and we're really incredibly grateful for that. So thank you. Between them, many years of experience working with job seekers and helping navigate the market and achieve career goals. They're going to provide you with some practical tips and insights to help you stand out from the competition, showcase your skills and experience, and hopefully land your next role that bit quicker. So we'll be covering a variety of topics, including the importance of mentorship, how to maintain your confidence while job searching, and the perception of HR and talent teams when reviewing your application as well. I've no doubt much more besides will come out as we get into discussions, including strategies around how to build out your personal brand, improve your resume, securing and preparing for interviews, all sorts really. So before I formally introduce our experts, let me just give you a quick overview of how this next hour will work. Kelly from TalentNet, she's our Chief Zoom Officer. No pressure, Kelly, for this next hour, and we'll shortly be kind of whizzing you through all of the different sessions that the guys have prepared here. So we do encourage you to be active in these sessions, take notes, ask questions when you can. You can also post questions in the chat as they come up. So please feel free to do that. And if we don't get to all the questions, we'll endeavour to pick those up at the end in our Q&A when we'll have a chance to do that. So just to emphasize, we really do want to encourage you all to just make the most of having this access to these industry insiders and don't hold back. And thank you for all the questions you've already shared. We'll try and get as much covered as we can in this next hour. But ultimately our coaches are here to help, and we want you to leave this session feeling more confident and empowered in your job search. So with all that said, let me introduce the panel. Let's go Kristen first, if you don't mind. Can you just give me a quick overview of who you are? We do just a quick introduction to the session you'll be leading. Thank you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Kelley. My pronouns are she and they. I'm the director of programs at LGBT Tech, which is an organization, we're a nonprofit that works at the intersection of technology and the LGBTQ plus community. And so through our work, we have a program that focuses on getting more diversity in terms of more representation from the LGBTQ plus community in STEAM fields. We run a mentorship program called Paths. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about, how to use mentorship to your advantage throughout your career at different points in your career and what the benefits of mentorship are, especially for our community.
Thank you very much. Sebastian, would you mind next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Sebastian Dziuk. I'm just outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota, pronouns he, him, and I'm a certified life coach, author, and public speaker. And my information today is going to be about maintaining confidence during your job search. It can be really difficult, especially in these times and especially as a queer person, but there's ways that we can get ahead of it and proactively take care of ourselves in the process.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mike, lastly, but very not least.
Yeah, hi everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Mike Kohn. I use he, him pronouns. I'm based in the Boston area in the US. I am the head of the people function for a tech company that is distributed around the world. And so my focus is going to be really from a recruitment lens, peeking behind the curtain. What does HR look for? How can we help to shape some of your materials so that they're positioned best when you're submitting that information and giving you some insight into how HR views that content.
Great, Mike and everyone, thank you very much. So without further ado, let's get things started. We're going to hear from Sebastian first, and then we'll move around all the speakers as we go. Each speaker will have about 10 to 15 minutes, about 15 minutes each. So Sebastian, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, John. Let's get this share screen going. All right. Like I said, I'm going to be talking about maintaining your confidence during the job search. And if you want any more information after today's session, feel free to reach out to me. My website is coachbastian.co. Again, certified life coach, author, speaker, and I'm also a 10-year Army veteran. And so I got into the corporate world just a few years ago, and then have had my own business for the last few years, in addition to having my military career, which I left the military in January 2022. So I like to start this with talking about luck and what it really is. And it's where preparation meets opportunity. And so in the job search, it's important that you get as many ducks in a row as you can. And we're going to talk about some of that today, of what you can do to prepare. So when the opportunities do arise, how you can take full advantage of them. And so the first thing is to know your story. And so feel free to drop any questions in the chat as well. And John, if I get real into my presenting and I miss a question, feel free to stop me and be like, hey, we got a question.
I'm on it. Thanks.
Yeah. So knowing your story and how important that is. As a queer person, we have such unique backgrounds, and that provides us a unique perspective going into jobs and what we can bring to different positions. And so think about, how prepared do you feel to answer the question, what are you looking for in a job? That's often one of the first things that a recruiter is going to ask you in a recruiting screening interview. What are you looking for in this job? And so how well do you know yourself, know your background, skills, and story? And are you able to convey that succinctly for that specific position? And so knowing yourself so well will help you in not just that one interview, but then when you're networking, it's also going to become much, much easier to roll off the tongue like, hey, what are you doing? And what are you looking for? And I'm going to drop in the chat a book that I found really valuable, even if you're not a writer. it can really help to start to understand your story and understand yourself more deeply and how your experiences can support you in a new role. A lot of times when I'm on LinkedIn, I see job seekers, they'll post, hey, I'm looking for a project management position, for example. Okay, but a project management position in what kind of organization? Do you have a specialty? And so getting more specific in how your skills tie to your story and how that ties to the positions that you're looking for can be super helpful in not only recruiters finding you or when you reach out to recruiters and hiring managers, but also for referrals. That's how you can really utilize your network. If they can say, hey, I know this queer person who has nonprofit project management experience, who has been in senior level roles before, and they're looking for their next opportunity at maybe now a for-profit tech organization. If you can get real specific with that, that helps people narrow down referrals. And then practice your story, telling your story at different networking events. If you're doing in-person ones or virtual ones, I mean, I even suggest throwing it in the chat. Give me 2 sentences of what you're looking for and practice getting succinct with that. And do it on LinkedIn too. I'm also going to drop in the chat 2 people that I recommend following. One person, not queer, but great career advice. Another person, queer with a decent following, who is like unapologetically himself. And so I've started following him, and I'm not even in like SaaS and B2B community marketing, but just his authenticity shows through all of his content, and I know exactly what he's about. And so going along with knowing your story is practice, practice, practice. Now, as a speaker, when I'm getting ready to do a keynote presentation, I run through it at least 50 times. And that's not memorizing it, that's rehearsing it. And so you understand the flow of your stories and understand what stories you want to tell, your opening story, your closing story, what are the points that you want to make. And so even putting together like this presentation, I have, okay, how do I want to open it? How do I want to close it? What are the main points that I want to make? And so going into an interview, when you have those opportunities where they're like, hey, anything else to add? You can have your little pitch ready with those points, and it has a nice flow. And again, it's not memorized. And so you're better able to do it off the cuff. And like I said, have coffee chats with people on LinkedIn, go to networking events and practice telling your story. And I guarantee your story is going to be one that people want to hear. So often people think, oh, my story's so boring. I'm just maybe in an HR generalist role or something. But there's something that you can uniquely offer to organizations that people want to know, and that's going to help you stand out in the crowd. And so the last thing with maintaining your confidence throughout your job search is not just being able to know yourself so well that you're going to exude that confidence, but also the self-care behind the scenes. And it's not just bubble baths. So often we see online like, oh, I'm going to go to Lush and get some bath bombs or something, right? Or have some wine in the tub, whatever we might see as the picturesque self-care thing online. But self-care is really what gives you energy and fills your cup back up after it's been depleted. So I'm sure everyone in here has experienced being not chosen for a job, right? And it could be maybe they already had someone in mind. Maybe they were choosing between you and somebody else who had equal qualifications. Who knows what was happening behind the scenes? All you can do is take care of yourself after and note, hey, what did I do right? What can I improve on for next time? And after you've figured out, hey, these are my lessons learned, don't forget to take care of yourself and totally just forget about it. And then go out and do something that's going to make you feel so much better. And so for me, that's cooking a really nice meal and maybe splurging on a dessert somewhere and talking with friends, going out to a movie or something that really is where I can take my mind off of something and experience joy with a lot of other people. And so again, self-care, it's not just even binging Netflix. Maybe it's going to be also journaling. So give yourself time to process and take care of yourself throughout the process. And feel free to reach out to me through email. It's Bastian@coachbastian.co. Feel free to take a picture of this screen or screenshot it. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I see a lot of folks have already dropped their LinkedIns in the chat. So I'm going to drop mine, but I'm also going to go connect with all of you. And so that's what I got for all of you. I know it's short and sweet. I wanted to leave time for us to have a conversation. Maybe you have a unique situation that's happening that other people can also learn from. So feel free to come off mute, drop questions in the chat.
Thank you, Sebastian. So for the group, is there anything you'd like to ask at this point? If no, we can move on, and you can store those questions up, and Sebastian's here, we can come back to things at the end when we do our wrap-up Q&A.
That's a great question and great thing to point out. I've thought about that in my own professional presence, even with having a business. And then I also have a day job that's corporate. And so how am I presenting online? And for me, it got to a point, I just want to be me. And that's what's first and foremost, most important. If I don't feel like I can show up fully authentically myself, then I don't want to work at that company. Like when my current day job, even I can wear this hat and it's no problem. And so that's what I love about it. And so thinking about what situation are you in and what are you comfortable with? Not everyone is comfortable putting everything out there on their LinkedIn or any other social media that might be public. Or maybe right now, hey, this paycheck, I need food on the table. That's what's most important right now. That's okay. And you can use other platforms to show yourself more authentically if you choose to. And then I know some queer people that don't even have a social media presence. And so it's all up to you and what makes you feel most comfortable and what your current priorities are. I mean, my goal is that everyone on this call and any queer person can feel totally comfortable in the future, shouting from the rooftops that, hey, I'm queer, I'm here. And it is a huge asset to your organization and you're missing out if you don't hire me. But we're not totally in that place yet. So it's knowing what your priorities are and what you feel most comfortable with, especially if you're a trans person today. Thanks for the question.
Awesome. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's move on. Thank you, Sebastian. Okay, Kristen, let's have your presentation. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so I think that is actually a really good segue. Can everyone see the presentation? Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, I think that's a really good segue into some of the things that we're going to kind of dive into here. So our PATHS program through LGBT Tech, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, and then talk a little bit more generally about using mentorship in your career as well. But one of the things that we really try to highlight is getting LGBTQ plus individuals into STEAM fields, not only because of the kind of job stability and financial stability kind of that our community doesn't always have access to that you can gain in those fields. And I think that's really important and shouldn't be undermined, but also kind of who we as queer individuals, what we can bring into those fields because of our unique experiences, and especially thinking about the role that STEAM, so we use STEAM instead of STEM, just acknowledging the role that kind of arts plays in those spaces and kind of in all spaces, but thinking about what the role that STEAM plays in our society. So, without representation from folks of different backgrounds doing things like working in tech and engineering and things like that, those have very real societal implications, and especially for the end users and people who are interacting with those final products. So for us, it's really important that we are creating space in those fields for LGBTQ plus individuals. But I think that a lot of this, I think that's actually applicable to all fields. I would love to see, you know, where we reach a point where there's kind of diversity and but like really equity in all job markets for our community. So I'm going to be talking about using mentorship throughout your career. And we'll be kind of talking about just the importance of mentorship generally. I also wanted to give some space for you all to hear from some of the professionals that have participated in our programs. I think it's really important to just have different voices from different parts of the community. And I'll also talk about some resources that we have and leave a little bit of space for Q&A as well. And so the importance of mentorship in our community. I think that it's important to look at like what are the benefits of mentorship for both mentees and mentors, because I think a lot of the times we think about it in the sense of like what can mentees gain, but if you're interested in participating as a mentor with somebody, I think that there's a lot of benefits that can bring to your career as well. And I also don't think it's always necessarily a binary kind of relationship. I think that a lot of the times, you know, it's a mutual kind of learning experience, or you could be involved with multiple different people at once where you're serving as more of a mentee role sometimes and more of a mentor role at others. So for mentees, I think it's really valuable in that it can provide guidance and support throughout their career, kind of pointing them in different directions of where they should be looking for job, furthering education opportunities. There's different developmental opportunities. Growing your network is a big one. I think even just developing those relationships can be really important. You know, a lot of folks might be looking for a mentor who could eventually lead them into a certain job at a certain company that they're interested in working for, which I think can be really useful. I think that a lot of people do find work that way. Unfortunately, in the world that we live in, this wasn't the case, but networking is, you know, really key to getting into positions a lot of the time, just knowing somebody. And so kind of mentorship can be a good first step into that and kind of a more approachable way to at least kind of get your name known in that space. And I think it also can provide new perspectives and approaches. So I think it can be great to be finding somebody who could be working with you in a mentorship capacity that, you know, you might identify with based on, you know, your career goals or like, you know, the industry you're working on. It could be something about your identity. So finding another person who's part of the LGBTQ plus community. But it could also be somebody who's different than you, who could provide new perspectives that could be really valuable to your growth, both personally and professionally. And finally, I think it can increase your confidence. I think a lot of the times having that guidance is really important, especially for, you know, people from historically marginalized backgrounds who might face things like imposter syndrome, things like that. Just having that person to kind of go back to and maybe debrief after an interview or something like that, who can kind of just be continuously giving you feedback and pushing you in the right direction, I think can do a lot for your confidence, which is really key also during the job search. As Sebastian mentioned, it's kind of like you have to sell yourself and your story in those spaces. So having community around you to support you through that can be really important. And in regards to how having a mentorship relationship for mentors can kind of benefit you as well, contributing to the development of, you know, your colleagues within your organization. For example, if you're working with kind of newer employees at your company, that could really, you could really be doing a lot to just grow the work that you're doing. It helps you build communication and teaching skills, which I think is a great thing that you can be putting on your resume as well, which helps you find further career opportunities in the future. You also benefit from that networking opportunity. You know, you might be introduced to new spaces that you wouldn't have otherwise kind of had access to or just known about. Mentees can also, you know, provide new perspectives and approaches. I know a lot of companies will have kind of like reverse mentoring programs, especially for like where kind of executive level employees will work with LGBTQ plus employees to kind of learn about their experiences and things like that, which can be beneficial in having better company policies around supporting different communities. But I think just in general, especially like I always try to have folks in my life who are just younger than me, who are kind of playing that mentorship role as well, where I can be learning kind of new perspectives, especially within our community. I think just like the tools and different kind of vocabulary and concepts can be really valuable learning from newer generations. And also, I think just there's something really powerful about empowering new generations of our community in your fields. The more of us that there are visibly in those spaces, the more kind of positive experiences we all have. So I think that kind of contributing to that mission is really important, and it just kind of it supports all of us in our work. And also just a few statistics that we wanted to share around the importance of mentorship and how that can kind of tangibly support you in your career. So I won't read through all of these, but I'll just touch on a few of these, and we'll share this presentation afterwards as well. But around 70% of Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs. So that's also one resource that you could look towards. If your company has a mentoring program, it might be worth getting involved in, or you might be able to find companies that have mentoring programs that are external. So a lot of companies might do kind of different skill trainings around some of the work that they do. So you could have a coding boot camp that's held by a tech company, where you would end up working with some of the employees there in a mentorship capacity. So that's a really good resource, I think, for finding mentors and also just kind of getting your foot in those spaces. And 25% of mentees saw an increase in salary, which I think is also really important, not just looking at what new career opportunities in terms of finding a job, but things like how to ask for a raise, how to apply for a promotion. Those things can be really helpful. Just having a mentor kind of guide you through that process. And also having somebody who might be in a higher position kind of in your company, if that's the capacity you're working in, that you have a close relationship with, that could definitely help you in terms of getting that promotion or getting that raise. And so again, mentees are 5 times more likely to be promoted than people without a mentorship, and 6 times more likely, mentors are 6 times more likely to be promoted to higher positions than those not involved in mentorship. And again, that speaks to the value of kind of participating in mentorship from both ends. So I'm going to share this. I don't know if we have a lot of time to play both of these, but I do want to share this clip of one of our mentors from our mentorship network kind of speaking about the importance of mentorship in her career. So Alma Ronaz is the co-founder of Latinas in Cyber, which is another mentorship network that does some really amazing things, just trying to create more space for Latinas in cybersecurity. So here's what she had to say.
I think you have to share your audio too, Kristen.
Oh. Sorry, one second. Sorry, what do I have to do to, share computer sound? Okay. No, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it now.
Mentorship for me has been the key to my success, to getting where I am now. So if you can get that one person to believe in you and to continue to support and nurture you in the sense of they champion you when you're not in the room. If you can find that person and then from that person find more of them, because it's okay to have more than one mentor. You actually should want to have more than one mentor. And the mentor is key. It's important to keep in mind that a mentor is just like anybody else. They're a human being, and if they're willing to give of their time, their resources, their network, take them for who they are and what they can do, and always nurture that relationship. No matter where you are in your career, you want to have a mentor. So finding a mentor and somebody who will advocate and champion for you, it's priceless. It's something that I wish for everybody.
So I'll leave this here. I won't play the other clip that we have now, but feel free to go back and check it out later after we share this presentation. And so, yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we focus on STEAM specifically, and why for us LGBTQ plus representation is so important in those spaces. So 17 to 21% of LGBTQ plus individuals LGBTQ plus individuals are 17 to 21% less represented in these spaces. And that's also folks who are out in their workplaces. And about 40% of LGBTQ plus individuals in STEM are not out to their colleagues just because they haven't had the space to be out and be comfortable. I think these things are starting to change with a lot of effort from the community. About 47% of LGBTQ plus STEM professionals report having experienced professional devaluation, which is much higher than their non-LGBTQ plus counterparts. And LGBTQ plus STEM professionals are more likely to experience stress from minor health problems and insomnia than their counterparts who are not part of the community. So I think, these statistics will vary across different industries, but for us, we focus on this. And I think this is why the visibility aspect that we focus on is so important, and creating that mentorship, not only to kind of address the issues that our community faces, like the barriers to getting into these fields, but also to create more positive environments once they're working in these fields, and to kind of help with the retention of LGBTQ plus professionals. And so we have our PATHS program at LGBT Tech. So our PATHS program exists to inspire LGBTQ plus community members to explore STEAM fields. And we do this through conducting interviews with current LGBTQ plus STEAM professionals, which you just saw a clip from one of those, really trying to address those issues around visibility and the lack of visibility that our community has of other people's kind of just existence in these fields taking up space, but also their experiences, because there's a lot of kind of initiatives around DE&I right now that are important, but I think it's really important that a lot of those are based really in the experiences directly from community members that they're advocating for. So kind of shaping some conversations around that. We also have the PATHS STEAM Educational Grant, which is a grant of up to $5,000 for LGBTQ plus students in STEAM, and students is defined kind of openly. So we do support a lot of kind of traditional students, but also acknowledge the fact that our community members are not always encouraged or supported to go into STEAM education from kind of the traditional ages of school. So we also support folks who are doing kind of further career education and kind of pivots in their career. So things like coding boot camps and stuff like that, where people are learning a new skill to come into STEAM fields. And then we also have our mentorship program. So our mentorship program kind of like ties this all together in terms of giving folks the opportunity to interact directly with a lot of the interviewees, but also other professionals from the community who can kind of support them in, their education process and also their career searches and kind of the early years of their career in STEAM, to really create community around supporting them, not only just through mentee-mentor relationships, but also through the community of mentees, kind of having that peer support. And yeah, just really looking at like the issues around, as I mentioned, kind of retention and things like that, making space that not only are our community members getting into these jobs, but that they're having positive experiences and that they're feeling supported and empowered in their workplaces. Feel free to reach out to either Samantha or I think we both dropped our LinkedIn in the chat, so feel free to connect with us. And our emails are also here in case you have any questions or anything. We're happy to talk, or if anybody has any questions now as well, I'm happy to answer any of those.
Thank you, Kristen. That's, well, first, congratulations on the program.
Thank you.
It's amazing work you do. And I mean, it seems so simple, but I hadn't actually considered you could have more than one mentor. It seems silly now to think about, but of course it would make a lot of sense to have more than one. In terms of your program or any advice, I guess, to give to people, in terms of approaching people that you'd like to be your mentor, is there a good way to do that? Is there a way that you would encourage people to make that approach, and how best would you go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for our program specifically, you do have to apply to get into the program. But beyond that, I think that there's a lot of different ways. I think depends a little bit on like your field and also what you're looking to get out of a mentorship kind of experience. But broadly speaking, I mean, you could cold email or message people on LinkedIn, kind of make sure that you do your research and like know why you want to work with them. Also understanding like what you want to get out of that relationship. But, you could reach out to people via LinkedIn, via their websites, wherever you're kind of finding these people, and explain like why you might be interested in that relationship. And you might not have to pitch that like right away is like why you're reaching out, but you could be like, hey, I would love to grab coffee, or hey, would you have time for like a 20-minute Zoom call or something? I really respect you, and have some questions, and you could kind of like move on from there. I think networking events are really, really important. Just getting into any spaces where you could be meeting other folks in your industry, whether that's kind of networking events that are virtual or local in your city, or it could be, conferences and things like that. I think it's just important that you're kind of meeting people there and then following up with that conversation. Or it could be somebody in your company. If there's somebody that, you see in your company that's in a position that you would like to hold one day, I think you can have a conversation with them being like, hey, I really admire you for these reasons. I would really love to learn more from you. And I think it can be really hard to just kind of like reach out to people in that way, but a lot of people will be flattered, to kind of to hear from you. And I think especially folks in our community really want to support other people in the community. So I think they'll also be pretty receptive a lot of the time. There's also great resources. So like Out in Tech is a kind of Slack channel community that exists. If you posted in there like, hey, I'm looking for a mentor for like these reasons in this field, I think it would be, pretty easy to find folks. And there's a lot of different kind of resources that exist like that are kind of LGBTQ plus specific. Or there's other, like, for example, Disability In is another organization that we work with that has really great mentorship for folks with disabilities. So I think that, it depends kind of if you want support through navigating your career as part of the LGBTQ plus community or with a disability or any other part of your kind of experience, or if it's something that you're looking for that's more like tangible hard skills that like relate to your profession.
Amazing advice. Thank you so much. That's brilliant. Any other questions for Kristen there? If not, thank you very much for now, and we'll give the floor to Mike.
Hey everyone, it has been really great listening to Sebastian and Kristen share all of this. I will probably echo some of the thoughts that they said, so you'll hear some upvotes and a whole bunch of stuff. So let me do a quick share here. Can I get a confirmation? Can y'all see my screen? Cool, thank you for the thumbs up. So like I said, my name is Mike Kohn. I come from an HR and people background, and so we're going to talk about HR and you here as part of this. So just a quick background. I've spent my career in the HR space. A lot of that has been dedicated to recruitment. Right now, I work for an advertising technology infrastructure company. So we do a lot of work with software engineering in particular, but we've got a full gamut. And I have made a career out of really building inclusive and equitable environments that are really focused on a lot of the stuff that I think we all care about as a group here. Probably more interestingly, I'm a human being. I loved, Angela, your question from earlier. How much do you want to share with people is entirely up to you. I'm coming from a place of privilege here where I can share all of this with this group of people, and I feel very comfortable. Not everybody feels the same. So I will echo the response Sebastian gave about your own comfort level here, but this is me and my husband and our dog. This is probably more interesting than the professional side of things, but I too have been a job seeker. And so I can represent the standpoint of what have I gone through in addition to what am I looking on the other side. So let's start with applications and materials, and not to Material Girl for anybody who isn't tracking the Madonna reference. But a couple of things to call out when you're looking at job postings. That's your public front door. How does a company view your role? How does a company view their people? It gives you one perspective on it. And I'll be the first to say titles are just the freaking worst, and they make everything more complicated. So as you're looking at it, don't be discouraged if the title that you think you're seeking doesn't match exactly what you see. So be flexible. Sometimes it's manager, sometimes it's senior manager, sometimes it's director, sometimes it's none of those. The title really reflects a lot of the internal guidance that they are following, but sometimes be willing to sort of shuffle around and look through the job description, get to the bottom where it says requirements. That's going to be super important. One of the things that brings up for me from a skills standpoint, if you look at that and say, I've got most of these skills, but I don't have all of them, what do you do? Go for it anyway. There's a ton of research out there that says that white males in particular are way more likely to just go for it with 70% of the skills, and particularly women and people of color are a lot less likely unless they have 100% of that skill set. So don't interpret that as a hard and fast. Instead, throw your hat in the ring, go for it. You may be already doing that, but wanted to just, put that out there that HR is not looking for 100% all the time. We're just looking for, these are the types of things that we want. There's a lot of laws out there when it comes to salary transparency. Not everybody is following them, but ideally we're getting to the point where people are actually posting, this is what the range is. Even when the range is there, I know I've seen a lot of these where, oh, it's somewhere between $50,000 to $250,000. So not helpful. To a certain extent, go with what you see. You can, again, glean a little bit about how does the company think about culture? How does the company think about people by looking at that range? Sometimes you might say, don't love this. This isn't helpful information. Sometimes you might say, it actually doesn't matter. I really need to focus on the job, and so I'm going to disregard that. But from a salary transparency standpoint, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock in it yet. I think we're moving in the right direction societally, but a lot of what HR is doing is trying to be compliant with the laws that exist rather than giving you full insight. So you can sort of calibrate based on what you see the ranges to be. How likely are they? 140 to 170 is more likely a realistic look. 50 to 250 is an absurd range, and you can just ignore that and throw it out the window entirely. The other thing here is locations. Remote work has obviously been the way of the modern company. Be open to both the hybrid side and the in-person pieces on a job description. There may be flexibility, and so don't be discouraged, again, if you see that written on there. Always worth throwing your hat in the ring and potentially in the initial conversation, gauging what flexibility looks like on the location side of things. On the resume front, this is probably the number one advice that I give people. A lot of resumes that people ask me to take a look at really emphasize the job description itself. This is a thing that I did. I was asked to carry 10 pounds, or I was asked to code this thing. I want you to focus on accomplishments. Emphasize what did you do and what did that lead to? Always ask yourself the question, what happened because of the thing that I did? I developed some code, and therefore it led us to be more efficient as a team. It led to this outcome from a customer standpoint. It led us to reduce the amount of carbon that is out there in the world. There's a whole lot of things that you can say. Focus on the achievement and the accomplishment and the outcome, not the job description type of language. It's really okay to have multiple versions, and a lot of times you will need it depending on what you're looking for. It's sometimes helpful to pull job description language for the things that you're interested in and incorporate that in different ways. So just wanted to put out there, you don't have to just have one. The other question I always get here, can you do in multiple pages? The answer is yes. If you have enough to fill 2 pages, you can make it substantive, otherwise keep it to 1. Unless you are an academic and unless there's a real circumstance that requires it, don't go over 2 pages. Thank you. They just won't get read. Which leads me to cover letters. Cover letters don't necessarily get read. I will be completely honest with you. I am looking at cover letters more as a differentiator and distinguishing factor after I've looked at the resume. But if the resume is great, I'm already interested. If the resume doesn't match what I want, I'm probably not going to the cover letter. That said, if you're putting it in there, use it to your advantage. Tell me what's not in your resume. Don't just repeat your resume in a cover letter. I am looking for you to really share with me what is exciting to you about this. Why did you apply for this job to begin with? You can keep it short and sweet, but give me some insight into who you are. I'll reflect as a job seeker, back to that earlier question. I go out of my way to make it clear somehow that I identify as gay. I have a husband, or I put LGBT information. I want that in my cover letter because, Sebastian, I echo some of what you said earlier. If you're going to decline me because of that, I don't want to work for you anyway, and I'd rather know that up front. That being said, again, that's coming from a place of privilege that I can afford to do that in this moment in time as someone who has a job. So that may not be for you, but there is an opportunity to really talk about who you are as a person and tell me a little bit more about yourself. Talking about interviewing, I think Sebastian already captured this actually. Tell your story with that elevator pitch. Practice, practice, practice. Find somebody else to practice with. Find a mirror to practice with. Record yourself, and then, oh God, the horror of watching yourself do it. These things are very helpful, and they are good practical advice, because I wanna be able to hear the answer to your question. Tell me about yourself. It's how I start a lot of my interviews, and it gives me a lot of insight. Can someone package that into 30 seconds to a minute? Can someone give me the key highlights about who they are, and are they ready to share that with me? It is totally okay to talk about not having a job. If that is where you are, there is a lot happening in our economy right now that this is a normal thing. That is not something that I would shy away from. Instead, acknowledge it and then talk about what you're doing during that time frame, what you're focused on, all of the things that we've really emphasized here over the time. Compensation-wise, everybody's least favorite part of any interview. When I'm asking a question, what are you looking for in your compensation? There are a couple of things here. Do your homework, know what the job is worth, and know what you are open to. We can't all just hold out for infinite time to get exactly what we want, but at the same time, know your worth and don't undersell yourself. This is super important, and you have to make the decision about where that lands for you. But at the end of the day, anchor on what you want. Gives people some information to that question. It is okay for you to say, hey, why don't you tell me what your range is? Sometimes you'll get a good response. I'm more interested in actually leading with our actual range. Here's what the role pays. Not everybody's going to be willing to do that. And so it really just depends who you're getting on the other end. I'm gonna try and just wrap up. I've only couple more slides here. So just other miscellaneous things for you to know. Exercises and activities have become a regular thing. What am I looking for in an exercise? First of all, I'm trying to not make it 10 hours of your time. I think that's a waste and really unfair to candidates. But I'm looking for, hey, here's a two-way experience about what it would be like on this job. Are you interested in this, and can you do it? Very likely by this point, we've already done some kind of analysis to say, yeah, you clearly are capable. How would this actually work in practice? And it gives you insight into what that looks like. One of my other favorite points, candidate time versus employer time. Candidates always want to know, oh my God, what's going on? They haven't written me back in 2 days. Like, I need to know what's happening. Employers don't think that way. From my side of things, I am focused on a couple of searches at any given time. I've got other stuff that I'm working on outside of recruitment. So for me, it's, oh yeah, I'll get back to them a little bit later in the week. It's okay. So don't read into that any more than you can. At the same time, if you are expecting to hear from someone and you don't, or if you just have questions, it is always okay to reach out to your internal contact and say, hey, I remember saying that you were going to get back to me. Any update on this? Always happy to do that. To that end, hopping on the phone is always great if you can. Not always possible, not always feasible, but it's always nice to actually get to a live human and have a real conversation as opposed to just a text one. Ghosting, it happens on both sides. Candidates ghost, but so do employers. It's a thing that's out there. And again, I just want to call it out there. It doesn't reflect well on the employer when they do it. And so sometimes if that happens, good to follow up with them, but you may want to think about, oh, this is how this employer is treating me. Is this a place that I want to work? Not always a question you can ask, but that is something that happens. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about recruiters are a function of a broader people and HR group. So, I myself, I lead an HR team. one of my team members is a recruiter. There is other stuff within the HR function that not everybody knows about. A lot of the things you think about, DEI, culture, learning and development. So sometimes it's helpful to ask to learn more about those other pieces. The recruiter can likely do that, but not necessarily. Sometimes it's good to hop on with somebody else along the way. Okay, that was a whirlwind of information. I'm going to stop my share, but really excited to share this and happy to go through any questions from here. Think about the audience that you're using for each of these mechanisms. I love the apply your resume where you're intending to send it. And so you're going to pull their own language to show them this is what you want. LinkedIn, I would adapt it only when you find that you are consistently changing your resume to reflect a thing. So I don't, obviously we're all coming from different spaces, but just speaking from the HR side of things, if I find that a lot of employers are specifically looking for language around total rewards as opposed to compensation and benefits, I might update my LinkedIn to reflect that just to optimize from a searchability standpoint. LinkedIn is going to be the place that recruiters use to search for your profile. If you apply to a company, guaranteed, no recruiter is going to go look at your LinkedIn profile and do a side-by-side analysis. It's not the amount of time that we want. Instead, it's please come find me. Do you have the information there that says, yes, I'm open to this. These are the right set of information for me. So just applying that frame of who's using resume versus the LinkedIn side of things, but don't stress about them perfectly overlapping.
Okay, that's super helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, we had some questions before the event about tactics to stand out in a sea of applications, right, in the competitive market. And you mentioned a few things in your discussion just here, but I mean, how do you? Given how short your time is in your role, do you applaud people that kind of go above and beyond to say, kind of put themselves in your eye line, and would you recommend candidates are proactive in kind of being resourceful and proactive in their approach to a job they really want to be seen?
The challenge with this is that you ask 10 people and you're literally going to get 10 different responses. I am not a huge fan of, hey, I reached out, I want to connect with you. Can we talk about stuff that's a little bit too much? That being said, there's also a functional difference here. I think the recruiter who I work closely with, she would love that. She would be so excited if someone said, hey, I'm really interested in your company. I want to learn more, because that's what she's dedicated to do. She is all about recruitment and building her network. So I think from a standout perspective, just be mindful of who you're talking to and when, and know that the personality is going to be different every time. If you choose to do that and you want to put yourself out there, A, have a reason to do it. B, treat it like you're a human. I imagine we've all been on the other side of those kind of like LinkedIn messages that sound like a spam bot sent it to you. Hello, I have job. Please see job. Tell me if interested. Like, that's equally uninteresting as, hi, I'm interested in a job at your company. Please connect with me. Don't do that. But if you're interested in really reaching out, again, apply the same methodology as the cover letter. This is why I'm excited. I'm a real human being. Here's who I am. Here's why I see an overlap. That I think is a good way to stand out. And again, it's that balance of, I have the things that you need, and also I'm a human being who really resonates with your culture, and I wanna talk about that. By the way, I am obviously saying human being like over and over again, because I value that and think that's really important, that we're not just cogs. We are actual people.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? To any of our speakers, please, open forum at this point. We've got a few minutes left, so any questions?
I'll field that one. I think if I were on the employer side of things, just with that set of information, I just want to know, like, just have an honest conversation about here's where I am from a personal standpoint. This is what I'm thinking about doing. I'm planning on moving to New York. I'm super excited about this, and I think there's a lot of great opportunity. I'm totally in for the in-person stuff. I am planning on moving, and so in the future, are you still in a position where we could go hybrid to remote? And like, what does that look like for the company going forward? And just put the question to them based on where you are. It's possible that things are changing on their side, and so that gives them an opportunity to do that. It's also possible that they just think that you're there, and so it doesn't matter. And so they're like, oh, well, there's someone here, and so actually we could take advantage of that and we could do more hybrid stuff. That's a genuine possibility. So if you take that off the table, it gives them the opportunity to say, like, are we sure we're going remote? My other thing here, I'm a big believer in getting things in writing. If they tell you, hey, yeah, you can totally do a remote, thanks for telling us, just send them an email saying, really great conversation today. Per our conversation, like, I'm really excited about X, Y, and Z, and looking forward to being able to do remote stuff in the future, or somehow get that in writing.
Any more? Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up. We've got to the hour pretty quickly. So lots of nuggets of information, lots of advice, lots of really cool stuff spoken about. We'll distribute some things in terms of takeaways from this event. So you will get some bits and pieces via email in the coming week. And well, we really hope you enjoyed the event. And thank you everybody for attending, all the speakers. Appreciate your time, and keep your eyes peeled for future events. I think that's how for now.